The sky burned crimson and obsidian, a testament to humanity's final moments of independence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the underground research facility as the Krell-Zar ships transformed Earth's major cities into molten graveyards. 72 hours was all it took. 72 hours to reduce 4 billion years of human civilization to smoldering ruins. The invasion began with a silent pulse that disabled every electronic system on the planet. Satellites dropped from orbit like dying fireflies. Communication networks collapsed. Military defense systems became useless hunks of metal. The Krell-Zar struck with surgical precision, their quantum weapons rendering human technology obsolete in moments. Elena's research team had been working on quantum communication technologies that might have given humanity a fighting chance. Now they were nothing more than scattered corpses, their bodies broken and discarded like forgotten tools. She felt the weight of her pregnancy, a secret she had kept hidden, even from her closest colleagues, pressing against her as she moved through the devastated facility. Major Jack Harper's story was similar, yet uniquely brutal. The Special Forces operative watched his entire unit decimated in the initial bombardment. Of the 120 elite soldiers he had commanded, he was the sole survivor. The Krell-Zar seemed to take perverse pleasure in leaving him alive, a broken symbol of human weakness. Labor camps became the new reality. Humans were sorted like industrial components, those with technical skills assigned to maintenance, those with physical strength sent to resource extraction, the elderly and very young typically eliminated. The Krell-Zar viewed humans as nothing more than biological machinery, efficient resources to be exploited and discarded. In the Mojave Desert labor camp, Jack found himself surrounded by the broken remnants of human society. Engineers worked alongside farmers, former soldiers beside teachers, all reduced to nameless workers in alien uniforms. The camp's perimeter was guarded by massive biomechanical sentinels, their crystalline structures humming with energy that could vaporize a human in milliseconds. It was there, during a moment of seemingly hopeless despair, that hope itself made its first appearance. A young girl, no more than 8, secretly passed Jack a small piece of paper. Her eyes, defiant, unbroken, held a message written in careful tiny letters. A series of numbers, a code, a promise. Meanwhile, Elena had infiltrated a Krell-Zar administrative center, posing as a compliant worker. Her scientific background made her valuable, and she used every ounce of her intelligence to gather information. She noticed something the aliens didn't understand: the subtle networks of human communication, the way survivors could communicate through the most minimal of signals. The Krell-Zar committed a public atrocity intended to crush human spirit. They selected 50 random prisoners and executed them in front of the entire labor camp, believing such a display would eliminate any thoughts of resistance. But they fundamentally misunderstood human resilience. Each drop of blood spilled became a seed of rebellion. Jack decoded the girl's message that night. Coordinates, times. A network was forming, invisible to the Krell-Zar's advanced surveillance. Survivors were finding each other, communicating through impossible channels. Elena discovered she was carrying more than just a child. She was carrying the future of a species that refused to be extinguished. The Krell-Zar believed they had won. They believed humanity was broken. They were wrong. In the shadow of occupation, in the whispers between broken people, in the hearts of those who refused to surrender, resistance was being born. Humanity was not finished, not by a long shot. The resistance began with the simplest of human technologies: communication. Jack Harper transformed the Mojave labor camp into a living, breathing communication network. Using nothing more than careful taps on pipes, whispered conversations during work shifts, and intricate hand signals, he began recruiting fellow prisoners. Each tap was a letter, each whisper a plan, each glance a promise. His first recruits were unlikely warriors. Maria Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, a former high school chemistry teacher. David Chin, a retired electrical engineer. Sergeant Marcus Williams, a veteran whose body bore the scars of previous conflicts. they understood something fundamental. Survival was no longer about individual preservation, but collective resistance. Alina's infiltration of the Krell-Zar Administrative Center yielded unexpected fruit. She discovered a mid-level administrator named Zarek, a being whose curiosity about human behavior had begun to challenge the Empire's rigid ideology. Their interactions were delicate, a dance of information and subtle manipulation. The first true test came 3 weeks into their underground organization, a planned micro-sabotage of a critical communication relay. The goal wasn't destruction. It was to send a message. Humans were watching. Humans were learning. Humans were preparing. The operation was led by Maria, who used her knowledge of chemical reactions to create a substance that would temporarily disrupt the relay's quantum stabilization. It was a brilliant plan that required precision, timing, and absolute silence. When the relay failed, the Krell-Zar response was swift and brutal. 50 additional prisoners were executed, their bodies left as a warning. But instead of crushing hope, the massacre fueled it. Each body became a recruitment poster, each execution a testament to resistance. Jack noticed something changing in the camp. Prisoners walked differently. Whispers became more confident. Eyes held a spark that had been extinguished during the initial invasion. Alina's pregnancy became both a vulnerability and a strength. She represented something the Krell-Zar couldn't comprehend, hope beyond the immediate, a future they couldn't calculate or control. Zarek provided critical intelligence. The Krell-Zar weren't a monolithic entity. There were fractures in their supposedly perfect system, philosophical disagreements, bureaucratic inefficiencies, opportunities. But with every small victory came risk. The resistance knew a traitor could destroy everything. Trust became their most valuable and dangerous currency. As the first month of occupation ended, humanity's rebellion was no longer a whisper. It was becoming a roar. Would you like me to continue with Part 3 in the same detailed manner? In the bowels of the Modav labor camp, Alina's stolen quantum communication device became the heartbeat of human resistance. Her fingers, calloused from weeks of careful manipulation, traced the alien circuitry with a precision that would have made her former research team proud. Pregnancy had sharpened her senses, heightened her determination. The device was a chimera, part Krell-Zar technology, part human improvisation. Alina had discovered something the aliens never anticipated. Human innovation thrived on imperfection. Where Krell-Zar technology demanded absolute precision, human engineering found strength in adaptation. Jack's training program transformed the labor camp into a clandestine military academy. Former accountants learned guerrilla tactics. Teachers became explosives experts. Each prisoner learned to see the camp not as a prison, but as a training ground. Movement is life, Jack would whisper during their cover training sessions. Predictability is death. His training went beyond physical skills. He taught psychological warfare, how to communicate without speaking, how to resist interrogation, how to turn the Krell-Zar's rigid hierarchy against itself. Each prisoner became a potential weapon, their mind their most dangerous asset. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Maria Chen, the former chemistry teacher, discovered a critical vulnerability in the Krell-Zar's quantum communication network. The aliens relied on a complex quantum entanglement system that assumed perfect information transfer. But Maria found a way to introduce microscopic uncertainties, quantum noise that could be weaponized. Alina's personal struggle added another layer of complexity. Her pregnancy was both a vulnerability and a symbol of resistance. Each medical checkup became a potential intelligence-gathering mission. The Krell-Zar medical systems, designed for their own biology, couldn't fully comprehend human reproductive processes. Zarek, the sympathetic Krell-Zar administrator, provided critical intelligence. The Empire wasn't the monolithic system it appeared to be. Internal political fractures existed, philosophical disagreements that could be exploited. Your species understands something we do not, Zarek confided during a rare moment of vulnerability. Chaos is not a weakness, it is a strength. The resistance developed a decentralized communication network that defied traditional military logic. No single point of failure existed. Information traveled through impossible channels. Brief eye contacts, subtle hand movements, even variations in work patterns. Jack's most dangerous recruit was Marcus Williams, a veteran whose body was more scar tissue than flesh. He had survived 3 previous conflicts and understood something fundamental about survival. It was more about mindset than physical capability. Their first major technological adaptation came from an unexpected source. A group of prisoners, including former IT specialists and electrical engineers, began modifying captured Krell-Zar equipment. They discovered that the aliens' technology, while advanced, operated on predictable algorithmic patterns. Elena's quantum communication device became their central nervous system. She developed an encryption method so complex that it would take the Krell-Zar centuries to crack. Each transmission was a quantum puzzle, changing its own parameters with each transfer. The potential mole within the resistance added constant tension. Every success could be a trap. Every victory might be compromised. Trust became their most dangerous currency. As the second month of occupation approached, the resistance was no longer just surviving. They were preparing to fight back. Jack looked at the makeshift map of their resistance network, a complex web of connections that would look like random chaos to the Krell-Zar. But to them, it was a living, breathing organism of human potential. Elena felt her unborn child kick, a reminder of what they were fighting for. This child would be born into a world that had been conquered, but not defeated. A world where human spirit refused to be broken. The Krell-Zar thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming. The uprising began with a whisper, not a roar. 400 hours. The Movav labor camp's biomechanical sentinels hummed with their typical monotonous energy. Jack Harper moved like a ghost, his decades of special forces training condensed into each calculated step. Around him, hundreds of prisoners waited, not with fear, but with a cold, calculated determination. Maria Chen's chemical modifications worked perfectly. The Sentinel's quantum stabilization fields began to destabilize, creating microscopic vulnerabilities that would cascade into total system failure. Elena's quantum communication device sent encrypted signals through impossible channels, coordinating every movement with surgical precision. The first assault team moved silently. Former construction workers wielded improvised weapons, pieces of machinery transformed into instruments of liberation. Electrical engineers had rewired communication systems, creating the communication network the Krell-Zar couldn't comprehend. Sergeant Marcus Williams led the initial breach. His body, more scar tissue than muscle, moved with a veteran's economy of motion. Each movement was a lesson in survival, each breath a calculated risk. Zarek, the sympathetic Krell-Zar administrator, provided critical intelligence, but his involvement carried a deeper revelation. The Krell-Zar Empire was not the monolithic system it appeared to be. Internal political fractures existed, philosophical disagreements that could be exploited. The uprising wasn't just about physical liberation. It was a statement. Humanity would not be reduced to resources. Humanity would not be broken. Elena monitored the operation from a hidden communication center, her pregnancy both a vulnerability and a symbol of resistance. Each transmission was a quantum puzzle, changing its own parameters with each transfer. Her unborn child kicked, a rhythm that seemed to sync with the rebellion's pulse. The Krell-Zar's response was swift and brutal. Orbital weapons targeted the labor camp, intending to eliminate the uprising with overwhelming force. But Jack had anticipated this. Underground networks, developed over weeks of careful planning, provided escape routes. 50 prisoners died in the initial counterattack, but their deaths were not in vain. Each body became a recruitment poster, each execution a testament to resistance. The most shocking revelation came midway through the uprising. The resistance discovered the true motivation behind the Krell-Zar invasion, a reason far more terrifying than simple resource extraction. Humanity was not just a conquest. They were an experiment. The Krell-Zar had been studying human adaptability, testing the limits of a species they considered primitive. The labor camps were not just sites of oppression. They were elaborate research facilities designed to understand human potential. This knowledge transformed the uprising from a rebellion into a war of species survival. Jack confronted the Krell-Zar officer who had overseen his unit's initial destruction. The battle was more than physical. It was psychological. Every movement, every strategy demonstrated something the Krell-Zar could never understand: human unpredictability. By dawn, the Motav labor camp was liberated, but this was not a victory. It was a beginning. The Krell-Zar had made a fundamental mistake. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for resistance. They would not make that mistake again. The Krell-Zar response was calculated and merciless. Within weeks of the Mogav uprising, they implemented a planet-wide suppression protocol that made their previous occupation look like a diplomatic mission. Elena's neural link technology became humanity's most critical weapon. Developed in secret, using fragments of stolen Krell-Zar quantum communication technology, it allowed resistance cells to coordinate with unprecedented efficiency. Each linked operator became part of a living, breathing network that could adapt faster than any centralized command structure. Jack led a series of hit-and-run attacks that systematically destabilized alien control structures. Former logistics experts mapped Krell-Zar supply lines. Engineers identified critical infrastructure vulnerabilities. Each attack was a precision strike, designed not just to damage, but to demonstrate human tactical creativity. The most unexpected development came during Elena's childbirth, a moment that would become legendary in resistance folklore. The labor occurred in a hidden medical facility, cobbled together from stolen Krell-Zar medical equipment and human improvisation. As contractions intensified, a Krell-Zar patrol discovered their location. What followed was a battle that would be whispered about for generations. Marcus Williams, stationed as a guard, used improvised explosives and tactical knowledge to hold off the initial assault. Jack coordinated a rapid extraction plan using the neural link network, and Elena, in the midst of giving birth, managed to upload critical intelligence gathered from the medical facility's systems. The child, a girl they named Hope, was born during an explosion that eliminated the Krell-Zar patrol. Zarek, the sympathetic Krell-Zar administrator, provided increasingly critical intelligence, but his involvement came with growing risk. A faction within the Krell-Zar leadership had identified him as a potential traitor. "Your species understands something fundamental," Zarek told Jack during a clandestine meeting. "Survival is not about perfection. It's about adaptation." The Resistance discovered a planet-wide weapon that could potentially annihilate humanity, a quantum cascade device designed to systematically neutralize human genetic potential. Its discovery transformed the Resistance from a liberation movement to a species-level survival effort. Elena's neural link technology proved crucial. By introducing microscopic quantum uncertainties into the Krell-Zar's communication networks, they could create windows of tactical advantage lasting mere milliseconds. But in modern warfare, milliseconds could mean survival. The Resistance was no longer just fighting. They were evolving. Jack's training programs transformed entire labor camps into resistance cells. Former accountants became tactical analysts. Teachers became communication specialists. Each prisoner understood that their survival depended on collective action. Maria Chen's chemical warfare expertise created subtle biological agents that could temporarily neutralize Krell-Zar biomechanical systems. These weren't weapons of mass destruction, but precision tools of disruption. The most dangerous element remained the potential mole within their resistance. Every success could be a trap. Every victory might be compromised. Trust became their most volatile resource. Hope, Elena's daughter, became more than a child. She was a symbol, the first human born during the Resistance. Her very existence was an act of defiance. Zarek's final transmission revealed the most shocking intelligence yet. The Krell-Zar invasion was more than a conquest. It was an elaborate experiment in species adaptation. Humanity was not just a target. They were a test subject. This knowledge transformed everything. The resistance was no longer fighting for liberation. They were fighting for the right to exist. As the third month of occupation ended, the balance of power began to shift. Humanity was learning. Humanity was adapting. And the Krell were beginning to realize they might have made a fundamental mistake. They had chosen to underestimate a species defined by its capacity for survival. A mistake they would soon regret. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Elena's daughter, Hope. During a routine medical scan, Elena discovered something extraordinary about her child's genetic structure. The neural link technology she had developed during her pregnancy had created an unexpected quantum resonance within Hope's developing neurological system. Zardik, the sympathetic Krell administrator, was the first to recognize the implications. "Your child," he said, his crystalline eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and fascination, "is not just a human. She's an evolutionary anomaly." Jack Harper understood immediately. This was more than a biological curiosity. This was a weapon. The Krell had invaded Earth believing humans were a predictable species. Their quantum-based surveillance systems were designed to analyze and categorize biological patterns. But Hope represented something entirely outside their computational models, a living quantum uncertainty. Elena's groundbreaking discovery revealed a fundamental flaw in Krell quantum communication technology. The neural link she had developed created microscopic communication channels that existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent, detectable and undetectable. Resistance cells worldwide began implementing this technology. Each transmission became a quantum puzzle, changing its own parameters with each transfer. The Krell advanced surveillance systems began to fail, unable to process the constant quantum fluctuations. Marcus Williams led a series of precision strikes that demonstrated the new technological edge. Former logistics experts had mapped Krell supply lines with unprecedented accuracy. Engineers identified critical infrastructure vulnerabilities that seemed to materialize and dematerialize like quantum ghosts. The political intrigue within the Krell leadership reached a critical point. Zarek's intelligence revealed deep fractures in their supposedly unified system. Philosophical disagreements and bureaucratic inefficiencies created opportunities that the resistance ruthlessly exploited. A breathtaking space battle demonstrated humanity's rapid technological adaptation. Captured alien fighter craft, modified by human engineers, performed maneuvers that defied the Krell computational predictions. Each ship became a living testament to human ingenuity. Hope became more than a child. She was a living weapon, a quantum anomaly that represented humanity's most powerful evolutionary adaptation, unpredictability. Elena's research revealed that Hope's neural structure created quantum communication channels that could simultaneously exist in multiple states. Traditional Krell surveillance systems simply could not comprehend her existence. Jack's tactical training merged with this new technological understanding. The resistance was no longer fighting the conventional war. They were engaging in quantum warfare, where the very act of observation changed the outcome. The most shocking revelation came from Zarek. The Krell invasion was part of a galaxy-wide experiment in species adaptation. Humanity was not just a conquest. They were a test case for understanding evolutionary potential. This knowledge transformed everything. Maria Chen's chemical expertise created biological agents that could temporarily neutralize Krell biomechanical systems. These weren't weapons of mass destruction, but precision tools of disruption that targeted the aliens' most critical vulnerabilities. The resistance developed a decentralized communication network that defied traditional military logic. No single point of failure existed. Information traveled through impossible channels. Brief eye contacts, subtle hand movements, quantum communication bursts that lasted milliseconds. Zarek's final transmission before going dark was both a warning and a revelation. The Krell leadership fears what they cannot predict, he said, and humanity is the most unpredictable species we have ever encountered. As the fourth month of occupation ended, the balance of power shifted dramatically. Humanity was no longer just surviving. They were evolving. The Krell had made a fundamental mistake. They had tried to categorize a species that refused to be categorized. They were about to learn the true meaning of resistance. The final battle began not with a roar, but with a quantum whisper. Hope, now 4 months old, became the linchpin of humanity's most audacious strategy. Her unique neural structure, a living quantum communication network, provided capabilities the Krell could never comprehend. Elena positioned herself at the core of the Resistance's quantum communication hub. Jack coordinated the global assault, his special forces background transformed by months of asymmetrical warfare. Marcus Williams led the ground teams, his battle-scarred body a testament to human endurance. The Krell launched their ultimate suppression protocol, a planet-wide quantum cascade designed to neutralize human resistance permanently. But they had fundamentally misunderstood their enemy. Each human resistance cell had become a living, breathing organism of adaptation. Where the Krell expected rigid structure, they found fluidity. Where they anticipated predictability, they encountered chaos. Jack's assault strategy defied every conventional military doctrine. Resistance cells struck simultaneously across the globe, not as a unified army, but as a distributed network of autonomous units. Each team operated with near-complete independence, connected by Elena's quantum communication technology that Zarek had helped them refine. The primary assault targeted the Krell's central command structure in what was once New York City. The massive alien citadel rose like a crystalline nightmare, its quantum-based defense systems considered impenetrable by every known standard. Maria Chen's chemical warfare team had spent months developing a quantum reactive agent that could temporarily destabilize the Citadel's molecular structure. It wasn't a weapon of destruction, but a fundamental disruption. Hope was their secret weapon. Her unique neural network could communicate through quantum channels that the Krell surveillance systems couldn't detect. Each cry, each movement became a communication burst that carried strategic information across impossible distances. The battle unfolded with terrifying precision. Ground teams struck critical infrastructure, improvised spacecraft, cobbled together from modified alien and human technology, launched precision strikes against orbital defense platforms. Every movement was a quantum dance of unpredictability. Jack confronted the Krell Supreme Commander in a battle that was more than physical. It was a clash of species-level philosophies. The commander, a massive crystalline being named Vorzax, represented the pinnacle of Krell military strategy. "Your species is chaos," Vorzax proclaimed during their confrontation. "Chaos is entropy. Entropy is death." Jack's response was a quantum burst transmitted through Hope's neural network, a communication that existed simultaneously across multiple potential states. Elena's quantum communication hub became the heart of the resistance. Each transmission was a living puzzle, changing its own parameters with each transfer. The Krell computational systems began to break down, unable to process the constant quantum fluctuations. Marcus Williams led a ground team that penetrated the Citadel's deepest levels. Former accountants became tactical analysts. Teachers transformed into communication specialists. Each prisoner understood that survival depended on collective action. The most critical moment came when Hope's unique neural structure created a quantum communication burst that temporarily disabled the Krell's primary defense systems. It wasn't destruction. It was fundamental disruption. Zarek, the sympathetic Krell administrator, made his final stand. His betrayal of the Krell leadership opened critical vulnerabilities that the resistance ruthlessly exploited. As the battle reached its climax, humanity demonstrated something the Krell could never understand: the power of collective adaptation. They weren't fighting as individual soldiers, but as a living, breathing network of resistance. The Krell had chosen to view humanity as a resource to be cataloged and controlled. They were about to learn their fatal mistake. The aftermath of the war was not a celebration, but a profound transformation. Humanity emerged not just liberated, but fundamentally changed. The quantum communication technologies developed during the Resistance became the foundation of a new human civilization. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of this revolution, with her daughter Hope, the living embodiment of human potential, by her side. Jack Harper supervised the deconstruction of Krell's infrastructure, ensuring that every piece of alien technology was studied, understood, and ultimately repurposed. The labor camps that had once been sites of oppression became centers of technological innovation. Each former prisoner carried the scars of occupation and the pride of resistance. The most shocking revelation came from the analysis of Krell's records. The invasion had been more than a simple conquest. It was an elaborate experiment in species adaptation. Humanity had been a test subject in a galaxy-wide study of evolutionary potential. Zarek, the sympathetic Krell's administrator who had aided the resistance, provided critical insights. The Krell's leadership had been studying species that demonstrated unexpected adaptability. Humanity had not just survived, they had rewritten the very rules of survival. Marcus Williams led the effort to document the Resistance's strategies. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival became a comprehensive study of human potential. Military academies would study their tactics for generations. Hope's unique neural structure became a subject of intense scientific study. Her quantum communication capabilities demonstrated a level of biological adaptation that defied previous understanding of human potential. She was more than a child. She was a living bridge between human survival and future evolution. The quantum communication network developed during the Resistance transformed human society. Communication was no longer linear but existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. Former resistance cells became the foundation of a new decentralized global governance system. Maria Chen's chemical and biological research teams transformed medical technology. The survival techniques developed during the occupation became the foundation of a new approach to human health and adaptation. Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a beacon of resistance, a testament to the power of collective human potential. The Krell's had attempted to categorize humanity, to reduce them to a measurable resource. Instead, they had unleashed a species-level transformation. Diplomatic contact with other galactic civilizations revealed the true impact of humanity's resistance. The story of their survival spread across quantum communication networks, becoming a legend of adaptability and resilience. Jack and Elena understood that the war was more than a physical conflict. It was a philosophical battle about the nature of survival, adaptation, and potential. "We didn't just survive," Elena told Hope as they looked out over a transformed Earth. "We redefined what it means to be alive." The resistance had begun as a fight against occupation. It had become a revolution of human potential. Hope looked up, her eyes reflecting quantum possibilities that no alien civilization could ever fully comprehend. Humanity was not just free. Humanity was becoming something entirely new. Epilogue. The Krell's experiment had failed. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved.